Welcome to the 2012 Summit Podcast, presented to you by the Oregon Ministry Network. Summit took place May 14th through 16th at People's Church in Salem. The following message was brought to us by Gary Hoyt during the second plenary session.
So, I got to ask you a couple of questions here, and just to get started. Obviously, you guys have had some challenges. You said the accident happened in 2000, is that right?
Yes.
So what's the dumbest thing anyone ever said to you?
Wow, have you got a couple hours?
You want to go first?
You go first.
Honestly, there not been too many dumb things. Probably the things that stick out the most when people say, I know exactly how you feel because I have an uncle in a wheelchair, or my great-grandmother was in a wheelchair, so I know just what you're going through. You know, things like that. That's probably one of the dumber things.
I've had, after I'd been back at church, I was in the hospital for about 3 months, and then I started preaching after about 5 months, and, it was slowly happening. But I remember somebody was pushing me up the center aisle, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Oh, Pastor, I want you to know I'm back in church now because of the accident." And it was like, wow. You got to understand all the feelings inside of me of what I have gone through this just for you, the selfishness and all those kind of things. I realized it was issues in me I had to deal with. But we have visited a variety of churches, and one church that we visited, it was a very large church, a well-known church in our fellowship. I won't say the name of it. I'll just say it's near Springfield. And we were all set in our spot and everything. We were kind of near the back, and I was at the end of the pew, and we were in a nice place where it was kind of flat, so I didn't have to be at an angle. It's difficult to sit at an angle when you don't have any abdominal muscles. And so we were there, and service had just started, and some usher came and grabbed us and said, "You can't sit here." I said, "Well, this is where we want to sit." He said, "No, you got to sit down there in the front where the wheelchairs go."
No, he said, "People like you need to sit over here."
Okay, tell the truth.
He did.
That's what he said. "People like you need to sit over there." I said, "Well, people like me like to sit here." I said, I don't want to sit down there on a slope. He goes, "Well, we have an area cut out, and that's where the wheelchairs go." So my whole family got up, and we moved. We visited another church, which was a large church in our fellowship, and I won't say what city this is in, because I realized I said too much already. And in this particular church, it wasn't too long ago, we visited, and as we came in, I was there with my wife, my daughter was there, and all these people were saying hi to me. They were overly attentive to me and ignoring my family. And they'd say, "Hi there, buddy. Hey, little pal. Hey, champ. Hey, sport." I got all four of those before service started. And
then he said, "We have other people like you that are here."
So, yeah, we get dumb things.
So why do you think that happens? I mean, obviously they're awkward. They don't really know what to say. What recommendation would you give to us? Because we have people like you that come to our churches, and we need to know how to act. So,
I think the biggest thing is people in wheelchairs are just people. They just happen to use a wheelchair to get around. And we found there's people in this community, that are in wheelchairs that probably don't go to any church. Just like there were people in our community before this that didn't go to any church because they didn't feel welcomed. And we have quite a few people now. We have a young adult man that just went on a missions trip because he wanted to go. We said, we will make a way. We will make it work. We have people in wheelchairs that work in the nursery, that greet, because they're just people who happen to need to use a wheelchair. And if you don't know, something, it's just always just ask. That's the biggest thing. Just ask. And most people aren't afraid of being asked.
They're not afraid of being asked. Whenever somebody starts off by asking me a question, "How may I help you with this?" I always say, "Thank you for asking," and then I tell them how. And I have to say, to my own shame, I used to look past people in wheelchairs. It's not that I thought they were less than me. I just thought they were pitiful. And I didn't really realize they were people. And so now it's like, wow, I notice when people kind of look past me or don't take me as seriously, or Lori and I go to a restaurant together and they always look at her and they bring her the check.
Or they ask me, what would he like?
Yeah.
I said, I don't know, ask him.
So next time, ask Gary. Gary, you had mentioned earlier about when the accident happened, you guys never were in your home again. Lori, how was that with you? Just when you got that call?
Well, I got the phone call. I can tell you what time it was, what I was wearing. I can tell you everything about that moment. And grabbed my daughter and I actually took a shirt and my makeup. And that's all I took with me. I don't know what I was thinking, and got in a vehicle and I left my house. You know, I don't know how you left your house this morning, but I left my house just as it was. And we walked out and we never returned to live in it again. And actually other people had to pack my house just as it was. So think how you left your house this morning. Imagine other people going in there and packing it. And that was hard. All of it was really hard. I can remember being with my daughter, and she started to cry. And honey, because we were separated from our children. He was an hour away in a rehab facility, and I was there also. And then our kids were in two different houses. And I remember with two different families from the church, and being with my daughter, and she said, "Mom, we're homeless." And I said, "Honey, we're not homeless." She said, "Well, then tell me where our home is." Because we didn't have one. Because when we left that home, we knew we couldn't live in it, so we had to sell it. But we didn't have another place yet. We had to find a home. So it was really difficult. And probably the biggest thing is you learn a new normal, because you don't ever go back to the way that it was, but it's a new normal.
Why didn't you ever move back?
We were in a tri-level, a 3-level home, and they're not very wheelchair friendly, so kind of figured that probably wouldn't work.
Tell me about, I've had the privilege of being with these guys. Cindy and I have in quite a few different venues now, and I admire you, Lori, for first of all, you're a strong woman, because these things are heavy,
They
man,
are heavy.
And to disassemble and put it together and all of that. So there's some obvious change in some roles that has taken place. But could you speak to that a little bit, both of you? How have the roles changed in the home? How have the roles changed, in your leadership? Because you were a pastor at Bellevue Christian Center before the accident, after the accident, if I do my math correct, 11 years before and 12 years after, something like that. And so you've been there a long time. Talk to me a little bit about the roles and how they've changed and different things, and how you've adjusted to that.
Well, I'll just say the hard things for me as a guy are, it's very difficult to, when we fly places, I take a manual chair. Normally I use a power chair to get around, and it's very difficult for me to sit in the car. I transfer out of the chair into the passenger seat, and to sit there and watch around the corner of the car, look in the rearview mirror, and watch her take the chair apart and put it into the trunk, and then she has to turn right around, take the chair back out, and put it back together. Every time we go anywhere, as a guy, it's really hard to watch my wife do that. It's very hard to watch my wife put the garbage cans out. It kills me on the inside, to be honest with you. And so it's not like, oh, great, I don't have to do it, It's
Oh, no, there are times when you think that. Actually, before the accident, one of the, we're very much, our marriage has always been kind of a partnership. And one of the chores around the home that he enjoyed doing and did is he always did all the laundry. And I don't think
You're just saying that to get husbands in trouble.
But I don't think you were sad to give that one up. But it's important, because I do help him with pretty much everything in the morning, and then again in the evening. And that is, and I say this to women all the time, it's my joy, it's my privilege to do that. I love my husband, and I told him on the drive here this morning, he's my hero, and I live with him, so I know, I see him the good, the bad, the ugly, and he's an amazing man. But we're a partnership, so there's things that maybe I've picked up that I didn't before, but there's things that he picked up that he didn't before. So he has strengths that I don't have and takes care of things that I wouldn't know the first thing about. So I think we make a great team.
Yeah, and when it comes to roles, there are a lot of things that go along with disability that a lot of people don't realize. For example, because I don't have the ability to grasp, I don't have the whole opposable thumb thing happening anymore. It's difficult for me to even put clothes on. And so Lori has to get up an extra hour early every day out of her sleep time just to help me get ready. And it takes us anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to get ready, just to put pants on, to roll me back and forth to get the pants all the way on and button things and do things that I can't do for myself. And you have to wonder, do we, as those of us in here who are married, do you have the selflessness to be able to serve one another, not just for maybe a couple of weeks when they're going through a hard time, but to commit yourself to one another for a lifetime like that? And what a great thing to develop when you don't have to, that kind of a quality within your marriage where you're selflessly serving each other. So I don't say this just to you. She knows in my heart there's no one in the world that I respect more than this woman right here.
But we talk to people all the time. In fact, we were talking with Lee and Cindy yesterday. The statistics are when there's an accident or something like this, 85% of marriages fail. And we personally know people that, that's happened. And I don't think it's because, let's say it happens to him and the wife is selfish, but I know men who are in this position that all they do is gripe and complain and feel sorry for themselves. And so I think it's both ways. Every single day, without fail, and we've been doing this over 12 years, my husband says, "Thank you for helping me." Every single morning. And he doesn't say it like, okay, I got to check that off, I got to, make a list, but is grateful. And so, we have fun. We do things together. We make new memories. We used to, before the accident, for vacation, we go to the beach because Nebraska doesn't have an ocean. We don't have mountains.
Truth.
We have a river, but that's about it.
And corn.
And corn. So we would either go to the mountains or go to the beach. Well, wheelchair and a beach really doesn't work anymore, and it's really more painful than anything, to be honest. And so we've made new memories. We travel a lot. We've been to Africa twice, to China, to Colombia. We just were in Greece not that long ago, in Rome, because we believe in missions, so that's our heart to do that. It's hard, but we'd rather do it hard than not do it at all. So.
If you could share one or two truths to married couples, what would this be?
Do you want to go first?
I think, I sort of mentioned it earlier, but I think the idea of serving your spouse, and you don't need disability to do that, but it's a mentality and an attitude towards the strength that God's given you to think, how can I serve you today? I really struggle with that personally because I'm trying to think, what can I do that serves her? Every morning, because I only have two places that I exist either in bed or in the chair. And because I need strength before I can get up, because managing fatigue is a challenge, every morning, Lori makes me breakfast in bed. Come on, all the guys go, ooh.
Okay, but sometimes it's just a piece of toast and a banana. So it's not like, okay, just keeping it real here.
That's more than I got this morning.
I got it.
Sorry.
think when you go through something like this, really, I think it's any trial, any crucible, it just kind of exposes what's in there. You know, if I took this bottle of water and I shook it and water came out and I said, why did the water come out? A lot of us would say, because you shook the bottle. No, the water comes out because it's in there. And we weren't perfect before the accident, but we invested in our relationship. It was a priority. And in ministry, that's hard. But I knew that that I came before the church, that our marriage, and we're both full-time and we're both type A and we both work a lot of hours, but we made our marriage a priority and treating each other with kindness and investing in that. And so when the accident happened, we had that to draw on and we're intentional about and still have to be intentional about so that it doesn't, I mean, to be honest with you, you see us and you see the wheelchair, but we forget. We'll be out, we'll be doing something, and I'll catch somebody staring at us, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, we're different. Because we don't feel any different. I mean, we're just who we are. We're who we are. So I know when we hold hands when we're walking, or sometimes I'll sit on his lap, I know people are like, but you do that now? You know, it's just, but we forget sometimes that we're different.
Yeah. So the thing that, ever since I first met you guys, the thing that continually comes back, and you mentioned it in your sermon earlier, Gary, but just this idea, and you just said about the water, what's inside of you comes out. So regardless if you're in a tough situation, in fact, if you wouldn't have really worked hard on that, I remember you talking with the assistant superintendents about this, if you wouldn't have really worked hard on that before, you may have been one of those statistics, that 85%. So for all of everyone in here, the thought just keeps coming to my mind, we can never take that for granted. And we're pulled so many ways in our ministry and so many ways in our marriage. And I just want to commend you for that. Not to add to what you said, but I want to reinforce that fact. Don't wait till a crisis, because then you're going to mess up. Would you agree? Yeah, definitely. So one thing that I like about Gary always has some awesome shoes. And if he wore my size, he never wears them out. And if he wore my size, I've told him over the years, I'd love to take his shoes, because he always has these cool shoes. And I told him this morning, they don't look like they're being worn out at all. So there are some benefits. Is that right?
Absolutely. I could go buy a pair of tennis shoes, wear them for 29 days, trade them back in for another pair of tennis shoes.
Sounds like you've done that. I don't know, but.
What are some strengths and weaknesses that through this that have been exposed with you guys?
That's a good question.
I'll just say how doggone much pride I think I have inside of me that I continually have to kick away. In the first year, maybe 7-8 months after the car accident, got an invitation to come and be awarded Nebraska Pastor of the Year. And you would think that would make your shoulders kind of go back a little bit. What it did for me is I felt great. They are just awarding me something because they feel sorry for me as the cripple in the wheelchair. And forgive me for using that term, but that's the term that was running through my head. And I said, I'm not going. I'm not going to that banquet. I'm not going to go receive that award. I'm just not going. And I didn't realize how much pride was inside of me. I was too proud to be thought of in that way. And Lori looked at me and she said, which really fits with the theme here, she said, you're not going because you've done anything great. You're not going because you're in a wheelchair. You're going because you're exercising the courage, and those are the exact words she used. You're exercising the courage to get up every morning and keep on going.
For me, I guess one of the things that really, weakness that the accident exposed, before this, I was Superwoman. You know, I did it all. I made meals from scratch. I worked full time. I spoke. I led missions teams to places. And I really, people say, what can I help with? Nope, good, got it. You know, I could make it happen. Well, after this happened, I couldn't do that anymore. And it was hard accepting help from people. There's a couple women in our church that for the first year, every week, they would come and clean my house and make us dinner. And that was hard because I'd rather do that for somebody than have somebody do it for me. People, we live in a town of about 50,000. We're a suburb of Omaha, which is about 1 million. But we've been there a long time, and people were very well known in the community. It was on the news, it was in the paper, and so there were fundraisers that people held. People even in other parts, there was a school in Ohio that one of the girls that used to be in our ministry was teaching there, and they raised money, and that's extremely humbling to receive that. And that pride of, as ministers, we're used to giving, not receiving, and that was really difficult.
Gary, I know that both of you are involved, obviously, in training leaders. I know you have a master's in leadership and a lot of training in that area. Talk to me about your staff. Talk to me about, obviously you did some things very well before in terms of training leadership and being ready to release them. But, sometimes in working with ministers, we get this idea, and Lori's just touched on it a little bit, but we get this idea that we always have to be there. That we can never take that break. We can never be away. It won't function without us. We can't miss Wednesday night or Sunday morning or whatever it is that we... Would you just talk to me a little bit about that? Because I know you were put in a position where you had no choice, and yet it went on, and you've continued to pastor there over all of these years. What would you say now to leaders in the room?
You want me to go?
You go first.
I'm doing a lot of talking. I think in ministry, people make us feel very needed and wanted. And when the accident happened, there were people in my life that prior to that, ministries and things that I did and that he did, and that people make you feel like it won't go on without you. And you know what? It all went on just fine, and in some ways better. And none of us are indispensable. And sometimes when somebody gets a little bit too holding you up, oh my goodness, if we died tomorrow, the world would go on, and people would figure it out. And I think for me, I had a little bit of that Messiah complex, that I was the, I don't know that you ever did, but I did. And I don't have that anymore, so.
It's hard. I'm laying there on what's called a tilt table. And so I'm laying there at just maybe 6 days after the accident. They've just done surgery. I can barely talk. But the table tilts from side to side because I couldn't lift myself up or do anything, couldn't move, and so to keep the skin from having pressure. I'm laying there on the tilt table, and it's right before the first Sunday that we're going to be gone, and I'm telling who's going to do what jobs on Sunday morning.
You dictated a letter.
Yeah.
That I had to go and read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, so the second Sunday that I missed, the second Sunday that I missed, we were interviewing a new worship pastor, a potential worship pastor. He and his family had flown in from England, and we're interviewing them, and it's like, I'm not going to be there for this big interview that I've been kind of nurturing, and all the pastors on our staff have been raised up from within, but the worship pastor was not raised up from within, and I'm going to interview him. How am I going to? And so I told the doctor, well, I'm going to have to leave the hospital. Now, I had 8 tubes coming out of my body in various places, and I'm telling the doctor I'm going to leave, and he says, no, you're not. So I said to Lori, what did I say?
You said, yeah, call me a cab. I'm going to leave.
Call me a cab. She said, you're not going anywhere. And I started to threaten her. I said, Lori, now I've never used the D word before. Divorce. I was so messed up on the medications they had given me. They were concerned about me. Lori comes in. My father comes in. My best friend, Rick Lorimer, who've been best friends for 30-some years, he comes in, tries to talk to me out of it. I can't manipulate anybody in this situation. Finally, they all come in the room. I see a nurse with a syringe behind her back.
because he was determined that he was going to leave because he needed to interview this worship pastor.
And finally, I looked at the doctor. And here, my doctor was also paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair, and I didn't know him. And I said, "Will you pray about it?" The doctor, not knowing exactly what that meant, said, "Yes, I will." At that, I broke and finally realized I need to let go of all this and let people. And you know, when you let people around you have opportunities to fail, that's how you grow. And that's how you raise up people from within. That's how you reproduce leaders over many years. You know, I started making a list one day of all the different people that have gone into full-time ministry or part-time ministry or our missions or have received ministry credentials that have gone through the church. And I was shocked to see the number exceeding 100 over the years, just because the idea is reproduced. In my moment of crucible, I felt threatened, and so I wanted to control everything. And that's when I had to realize, keep on doing what you normally do, Gary. Encourage, pray, breathe life, release, send, empower, and give the ministry away. And people become something awesome.
That's good.
So the question, you know what everybody asks us all the time? They say, "You're paralyzed. How do you go to the bathroom and can you still have sex?"
I know, if you didn't say it, I know you're thinking it. So are you going to answer that question, or are you going to let me answer that? As you take a drink of water.
I think I'll take another drink of water. Go ahead.
Well, come on.
I'll answer the second. You keep drinking.
Put the water
I'll answer
down,
the
Gary.
second question, and the second question is yes, we can still have sex.
What are you smiling about?
Well, yes. It's very different. But, you know, they make marvelous medications these days. I won't say the name of the medication, but it rhymes with Niagara.
You're not taping this or anything, are you?
Oh, yeah, it's video, too.
I think we need to take an offering afterward, though, because from what I hear, those are kind of spendy.
So...
She read about it. Listen, you need to wrap this up. We need to hurry. So
okay. Yeah, I'll say this. See, it's like this.
I have no idea what you're going to say.
Okay, I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it's like this. The insurance will only pay for 4 of those pills a month, and with a $60 copay, you know, sometimes she'll say to me, "Hey, you want to spend $15?
And honestly, one of the reasons we have the opportunity to share our story in a lot of different venues, in churches and in secular venues, and one of the reasons that we just kind of open up our lives and talk about it is because we all have stuff that we struggle with. And kind of taking down the walls and saying, you know what, sometimes we need to ask for help. Sometimes we need to have those conversations. And not, especially in the church, I think we've made it where we can't have honest, encouraging situations. And I'll tell you, every time that we do that, it's amazing to me the amount of people that come up and say, "I'm so glad you said that, because I'm struggling with this in my marriage and I don't know where to go. I don't know who to talk to." And we should be, more than anybody, okay for people to talk to. Because I guarantee you there's people in our churches, I guarantee you there's people in here that have struggled with something that's like, I don't know who's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling and I want it to be better because I know that God has something better. So forgive us if we offended anybody, but we're just open because we just want to encourage people. That's just it.
Well, and we're grateful, honestly, because I wasn't sure that part was going to come up, but the reality of it is, I mean, here's a couple through courage, commitment to each other, and the strength of God that literally daily defy all odds. And they do it to the glory of God. And I think Christians in every circumstance, your kind and my kind, you used that word earlier, but whatever our challenges are, we should embrace it and say, God, give me the courage because this is who you've called me to be. I'm going to do this to the glory and the honor of God. Gary and Lori will be with us the rest of the week. We're excited. Lori is going to be speaking tomorrow at noon for the Women in Ministry Luncheon. And want to encourage you women to be part of that as part of your registration. They're going to be around. I have to do a couple of workshops, so they'll be in and out and always looking to probably visit with someone. Don't bombard them, but if you'd like to talk with them more, I'm sure that they would love to talk with you as well. And I want to thank you for being open, and I want to thank you for being candid, and I want to thank you for coming and blessing us in Oregon. Let's thank him.
Thank you for listening to the 2012 Summit Podcast. For more information on the Oregon Ministry Network and our events, please visit our website at oregonag.org.